level. But no, I have
Right.
not seen the document at this point in time.
So, I mean, just material revision, it has a timeline.
That's correct.
And so the timeline doesn't start until they send us an email?
We actually would have to receive a complete packet, which would include a full actual petition, which includes the material revision language and any updates required in law between now or the date of submission and when the charter was last renewed. And then there's a couple other minimal things, certification that it's a complete document, things like that, but that would start the clock. And I think, like I mentioned at the last board meeting, it is 60-day clock in the first cycle, 60 days until the public hearing. This mirrors the charter petition process. And then another 30 days for a decision, which can be extended by an additional 30 days for a total of 120 days if there's mutual agreement on both sides. So 60 and 30, 90-day typically process. And we would just align that with the natural board meetings that are already on the calendar for the county board.
So if this is about expanded independent study, I assume it's relevant to the fall, like fall enrollment.
That is my assumption. Again, I have not seen an actual document yet, but yes, that's been the suggestion.
Okay, well, I would think they would, if that's what they're trying to do, I would think they would want to get it to us right away, because if it impacts students enrolling in the fall, that happens soon enough.
Agreed.
So,
I mean, I anticipate receiving it within the next week or so is my guess. Just
Okay.
based on conversation there.
Right, and so you would, once you get it and you're sending it to us, you'll send it to all board members.
That's correct.
Right, okay. All right, that's all the questions I have on that.
Great. Next slide, Michelle. Just the last update on ongoing items. I notified the board in, I think at your March meeting, that there was a notice of concern sent to the Contra Costa School of Performing Arts surrounding deficient reserve projections in their first interim report. I just wanted to report that they did in fact submit updated financial projections by the deadline. Based on my initial observations, they seem to have addressed the issues, but we're doing a full review with the business services department here to make sure that they've in fact come into compliance there. So just letting you know that they did submit and it's under review. Likely by the April 20th board meeting, I'll have a conclusive report on whether or not that has been resolved.
Okay, so again, you say, oh, I'm sorry. Consuelo, you're.
Yeah, no, I don't have any questions on this. Trustee Butler, go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to ask one simple thing where it says remedy submitted. I would like to see what they submitted. Can you please share with us, or with myself at least? But I think as charter committee, we both would like to get it, whatever they sent in as remedies submitted.
Sure, it is their second interim report. So I'm happy to forward that along.
Well, did they also send any text verbiage, like in an email with it attached or something? Was there any explanation?
I mean, only just a brief note that that the second interim report was serving as the remedy for this notice of concern. You know, the primary issue here, right, is their multi-year projections. So they've revised their budget projections to meet the standards that are expected in the MOU. It's a relatively simple fix. But I'm happy to share their second interim with you. I can even point out kind of what they did if you like.
Sure. And, you know, I guess, so it says the notice of concern was sent in February. This first interim report is due December 15th, right? So, so you're saying that this problem appeared in the first interim report, and they're now fixing it in the second interim report.
Correct. Correct.
All right, well, fine. If you want to just send me the second interim report, and then if I have questions, I can get back to you.
Okay, very good. That was it for 4.3 for me.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you. Let's go on to then 4.4, Charter Board appointment. And why don't you give us your presentation on that, Mr. McChesney?
Sure. Michelle, you could bring that back up. Actually, there's no substantive difference in these slides from the slides that I shared last time. I just wanted to make sure that they were here and readily available in case there was something we wanted to refer to. This cites the ed code. The next slide cites the board policy that references this. And the ensuing slides provide some data points on my serving other county offices, as well as information about OUSD practices. So this is everything that I covered in the last charter meeting. Again, just wanted it here for your use and reference in case it was helpful.
Okay, so no new information.
Correct.
Okay, all right. So there was one that we were working on about the process, and Trustee Butler, was that our unfinished business for this item? Was,
Well, I wanted to speak to this.
okay, absolutely.
So remember, we discussed this at the last board meeting. We
Yes,
agreed to discuss it further in our charter committee. So I'm glad Mr. McChesney has the ed code section there, because I wanted to go to that first and read it again. It's was page 8 or slide 8 of his PowerPoint. It says ed code 47604C, a chartering authority that grants a charter to a charter school be operated as or by a nonprofit public benefit corporation shall be entitled to a single representative on the board of directors of the nonprofit public benefit corporation. So that to me is very important, because the legislature put this in the law and gave charter authorizers the ability to appoint a single representative to the board of directors. It is also in the charters. They include that wording. It's in our bylaws, as is referenced there. Or sorry, board policy, not board bylaws, but board policy, and in our MOU. Our MOU also refers, the MOU that we have, that charters have adopted when we get approval for any new charter petitions. So anyway, then there's this draft wording, which is the attached. If you want to click on the attachment, Michelle, Ms. Kiernan, that would be great. Okay, so some of this wording was adopted from what Oakland is on the Oakland School District website under their charter schools office information. And we discussed this at our last board meeting. As I said, there was a concern by one board member about the word enforcing under responsibilities number 3. It says enforcing. So I think that's totally fair, a fair concern, and we should delete the word enforcing and replace it with a different word there. You know, perhaps ensuring or something else. I don't know if you've given that any thought.
Yeah, thank you, Trustee Butler. I do remember enforcing seemed just like when we don't want to have the word report, that they have to report back to us. We don't want that language in there. And enforcing also sounds like punitive, or maybe monitoring might be a word.
Yeah, monitoring is good.
Oh, just observing and.
Well, monitoring.
You think that's like enforcing?
No, enforcing acts makes it sound like you're
There's
the
a,
police or something.
yeah, there's a consequence.
They aren't.
No,
Appointing a board member means they would just be one board member. They don't have any more authority than any other board member.
yeah,
there.
oh, that's
But-
right. That's true.
So I think monitoring isn't bad.
Okay,
What we really want is upholding the standards of transparent governance. I mean, it's what the whole charter school board should be doing, making sure their governance is transparent and following the Brown Act, et cetera.
oh, I like that word, upholding. Yes, that would work. Because they're all doing that.
Yeah, then it doesn't put their responsibility on to one board member. It's something they're all doing.
Yeah,
So let's change that word to upholding. Under number 3 there. Now let's see, there was another, thinking back on our discussion at the board meeting, and trustee Lewis had brought up some confusion in the very first sentence at the top. Under background, it says the Board of Education, as permitted by a ed code. The CCC Board of Education is appointing one appointee to the governing, I think that should be singular, governing board of select charter schools. Because she brought up that it sounded like we were trying to appoint one person who was going to be on the board of multiple charter schools, which was not the case at all. So it would be singular, one appointee to the governing board of select charter schools. Okay, so are you, let's see, Ms. Kiernan, are you making note of this? Control, trustee Laura, do you agree with me on that? We'd make that singular, cross out the word S, the S on there.
yes, yes, absolutely. I do remember. I'm glad you went over that. I didn't catch that, but and there were some other concerns or
Well, I mean, then there was concern about, their role and who they are and all of that. And I wonder if we should take out that whole, we want to keep this simple. The second paragraph where it says applicants will be selected based on this is the wording that came from Oakland. And apparently this is what they were doing, but we want to keep it simple. We don't want to cause any possible concerns here. And appointing a board member, they would just be a regular board member, similar to a parent board member or something. They're not expected to be, I mean, we would not be selecting them based on a particular knowledge in a certain area.
yeah,
For example, finance, that we're not expecting them to be overseeing their finances any more than any other board member. They're not the CBO, they're just a board member. So I wonder if we should take out that wording, target skill areas
yeah.
following.
And then it
Because
lists, it lists the skills that they want, and we don't, that's not what
we're not, yeah, I think that's where one of the other trustees,
we could keep,
Trustee Maxwell, was concerned about what if they aren't, what if they
Yeah.
say the wrong thing, kind of thing. Anyway, they aren't expected to be experts in any of these areas. They're expected to be a good board member. So same as any other board member. How about deleting that whole sentence?
well, wait.
Or
before you
what do you think, Trustee Laura?
Yeah, before you do, trustee Butler, what about that last line where it says all applicants will be screened for potential conflicts of interest prior to confirmation?
Oh, yeah, I was leaving that in there. Just
Oh, okay,
deleting.
all right, okay,
I was only suggesting delete the other sentence, the middle sentence, I guess it is.
yes, okay,
Target areas include.
sounds good. Yes, we're not, I agree.
So if we delete that sentence, yeah, then we have a shorter paragraph. Okay, and then the first sentence maybe doesn't make sense. Applicants will be selected based on their relevant experience and expertise in targets. Maybe we just say on their relevant experience, cross out expertise,
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
relevant experience, period. All applicants will be screened for potential conflicts of interest prior to confirmation.
Yeah.
Okay. I think in this process, instead of just referring at the top to the ed code number, I think we should put the quote in there, spell it out, because that's what's really important. Michelle, Miss Kiernan could do that later. Because that's a copy from another page and paste it in there. But we could just make a note, insert quote, ed code quote. That's on the first line, as permitted by ed code 47604C. Then insert quote. Okay.
Insert quote, you mean the ed code that,
Yeah, the actual text of the ed code, the one I read that's on Mr. McChesney's PowerPoint. And just say insert ed code quote.
There you go.
Yeah. Perfect.
Oh, I like that. It's nice and simple. Yeah. Basic. Okay.
Okay, this thing doesn't refer to our bylaws or anything else. It just refers to ed code. We could add that if we wanted to. I mean, this was a draft.
Trustee Butler, do we want to put our own board policy right under that?
Yeah, that's what I meant. It doesn't. Okay, right under what? Under the ed code section?
And then our policy, which is a little bit longer, but I think.
Well,
it's
let's see if it fits there in the sentence.
Yeah, a separate paragraph. Would be a second paragraph.
So maybe it would be, okay, well, I think, okay, after the first sentence, it says, as permitted by ed code, the Board of Education is appointing one appointee to the governing board of select charter schools. Then you could have another sentence that says, this would be according, in compliance with our board policy, such and such, the one, again, Mr. McChesney referred to in his PowerPoint. That's board policy 0420.41.
Yeah.
I don't know if compliance is the right word. In
accordance.
in accordance with board policy, and then quote that. Well, you don't have to quote the whole thing there, I don't think. You could just say in accordance with board policy 0420.41.
But Trustee Butler, we're bringing this to the board, right, for approval? Is that
Right.
what we're doing with this? I just would like them to see that in
See the
fact,
whole text.
yeah, there is a board policy. Here's what it says,
Okay.
I just, yeah. We can't assume that they are gonna refer to it or anything, and they may not have read it. I mean,
Right.
I would like to see the text.
Right. It's also in our MOU template. I
Yes.
forget if the MOU template says anything different than this board policy.
Yes.
Can I say something? Sometimes in a paragraph or whatever it is, an email or what have you, people get lost when there's a lot of words. If you want, and you don't have to, but it's an option, I could put a little asterisk next to the ed code, a little asterisk next to the board policy, and then down below, since it doesn't even take up all the space on the page, down below here, I could put like the ed code verbiage down here and the board policy verbiage down here. If that sounds like a good idea.
You can, I think that's okay for the board policy, but not for the ed code.
Okay.
I want the ed code right there because it's clear that not everyone has read it.
I agree with that. That sounds like a good process for that. Yeah, you're right. I mean, we don't want it to look too wordy and people just think it's.
Yeah, board policy, you can just refer to the board policy number with an asterisk, and then it could be at the bottom of the page.
The bottom, yeah, as a reference. Okay,
Now, on the MOU, I was just trying to bring that up, but it didn't, there it is. I know it's in the MOU also. And I was just wondering, I don't know, maybe Mr. McChesney knows, or maybe he has a comment about, is the wording in the MOU regarding this any different than the board policy?
No, it's quite brief. It literally is one sentence. This is the county board reserves the right to appoint a representative to the board of directors in accordance with Ed Code. So very brief reference there.
Okay, well, why don't we also, though, include it at the bottom of the page under board policy number, then the MOU, MOU template number, whatever, and include the wording down there.
It's provision 4.3 in the MOU, Michelle, if that's helpful. I will throw in a couple notes here. One, it's just important to remember that not all of the charters in your portfolio have the same MOU at this point in time. And two, just a complete aside, I wanted to note that legal counsel was able to join us. So Mr. Tucker is on the line in case any of the trustees have any questions for him.
Okay. Very good.
He's the 916 number, Michelle.
Oh,
Okay, I was wondering who that was. And back to your comment about the MOU. Yeah, I agree. Not every charter has an MOU, but this is our MOU template, so it's good to have it as a reference, you know.
Absolutely.
At
Yeah,
least that's how I feel.
yeah. That sounds good.
Um,
Any other revisions?
let's see.
Modifications?
Let me think a moment. Oh, well, I wanted to make a note that, well, I was going to change the subject a little bit. We're on editing this thing. Let's see.
Yeah, let's just finish this.
Let's just finish that. Okay.
Yeah, let's finish this.
I think this is pretty good for background responsibilities. Another topic that another trustee brought up at our meeting was how we deciding whether, you know, what charter school we would want to appoint a representative to. Is there some criteria? So I don't want to, I don't think we can have super specific criteria. I think we could have a statement if there are, if it appears that there are reasons to do so or something like that, but I don't want to have to come up with a very specific list of criteria. I don't think that's how this works.
No. We have that, you know, entitled to that. So I think it's case by case if,
Right.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely going to be as needed. We are not going to put them in all of the charter schools. Okay.
Okay.
Oh,
Well, I think that's pretty good for this statement. I wonder if, as far as this goes, I was going to make a comment on the other couple other slides in Mr. McChesney's PowerPoint related to this topic. But we also need to get public comment and everything else. So I don't know, Trustee Laura, what do you want to do next here?
okay. Is it time for a public comment? Ms. Kiernan?
sure. It can be whenever you'd like. If anyone would like to make a public comment, you could press *9 on your phone or press raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. And I'm seeing none.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I just have a comment too. It's funny, we were just talking about the, you know, governing boards of the charters and they don't have enough members, they're not getting, you know, and this is about the same thing as well. So this is a great need, obviously, that there be people on those boards. And so it's going to help them, you know, having somebody there, being able to appoint a person. So anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah,
On a
absolutely.
case by case
On a case by,
basis. That was in Victus. Yeah.
yeah,
But what I wanted to say about this, the list of county offices that may have done this, not county offices are not the majority of charter authorizers. And I'm not sure if all of this list of county offices, if they even all have any charters, because not every county has a charter that has been authorized by the county office.
that's right.
But anyway,
Okay,
so that was my only comment on that.
absolutely. Okay, so going back to the,
Let's go back, let's change the agenda to the slide of our appointment process. Great, and then I know we had questions about liability. I think we should let our attorney speak. But Consuelo,
yeah, certainly, Mr. Tucker, I would like your opinion about specifically this document. Yeah, so please.
Yeah, yeah, good evening, trustees, and I apologize. I don't have the document in front of me as I'm on my phone.
Oh, okay.
So I can speak more generally about potential liability for the appointment process, if that's helpful.
sure, whatever you want to say, because other trustees at our board meeting raised the issue of liability. Although, you know, another trustee also mentioned cities appoint planning commissioners, lots of bodies appoint people. Just because you're appointed doesn't mean you're going to create liability for the entity that appointed you. And I believe there's indemnity that weighs in here. So could you address any of that?
Sure, and I agree with that, right? If you're a city council member and you appoint a citizen to sit on a committee, the question of liability, I think, is a little bit different. I think under those circumstances, the actions ostensibly taken by either the appointee or the party doing the appointment should be aligned. Here, they could diverge, and I can't really come up with a example offhand. Just to take a controversial topic like location issues or something like that, where a charter school may desire to take a more liberal interpretation of the very voluminous, ambiguous code sections that exist in the Charter Schools Act. And then if they were to do so, it would put the appointee in a position where they would have to make a decision, where they would have to potentially make a decision between the best interests of the charter and maybe the best interests of the county office in their role as assisting the board and the county office in their oversight responsibilities. So that's kind of the first thing, just the level of kind of awareness that the appointee is going to have is potentially problematic in my opinion. The second item is, so let's just say, for example, the appointee does make a vote or does vote, because the appointee is going to have to be a voting member, and liability then springs forth from whatever action they voted on. As the charter authorizer, you will ostensibly be named in whatever lawsuit. Typically how it goes is that the injured party or aggrieved party will allege that you failed in your oversight responsibilities in failing to stop the charter school from taking whatever action that this party finds to be so offensive or causing an injury. Because they've now voted in whatever the act is that sprang forth this liability, it obviously complicates the defenses that the county office may have against whatever the case may be. So all these situations are going to be fact determinative. It's tough to sit and come up with scenarios in which it could happen, just enough to say that the potential is out there to create these complications when it comes to assessing liability and potentially defending the county office from claims of liability.
Okay, thank you very much. Trustee Butler, did you have any comments to that information?
I think that, you know, the fact that it's in law, the legislature gave this ability to charter authorizers to appoint somebody. I think that says a lot to me, and I think that we're trying to do our job as charter authorizers. So I think it makes sense in my mind to continue on this track.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. And some of these arguments, the underlying, there's some assumptions there that I'm thinking that bother me. And that is that the assumption is that the county and the charters are somehow, you know, against each other. They're adversaries, or they're, you know, not enemies, but, you know, rather than that we are collaborators. And, you know, I don't assume that. I assume we're collaborating with them in our oversight. And that's why I wanted to pull out all of those punitive kind of language in this. Collaboration to me is the highest form of governance, really, most effective. And so that's how, the other things that bother me is, I don't know, those situations are all theoretical, and this person will have one vote among all of these other people. And so I don't understand the pushback on how there's going to be all these lawsuits. Well, that also says to me, are the charter corporations really very litigious? Do they make a lot of lawsuits against the public schools? And if there has been an example that where this has actually happened, I'd be curious to see, you know, to hear about that event. But yeah, I agree that this is something we've been discussing. I was looking at some old minutes. This has been on the agenda for a long time, and it's time we just move on it. And yeah, I'm very happy with the way it's turned out. Okay.
So I have one question, if you're done, Trustee Laura.
Yes, absolutely.
Regarding if there could, I'm not entirely sure, Mr. Tucker, exactly the details of what you were describing before, but you described a situation where there may be a sort of a conflict for a board member who was appointed by the county board. I mean, couldn't that person abstain if they felt a conflict? If there was a conflict, I mean, clearly if it's technically a conflict of interest, they have to abstain. But rather than going ahead and taking a vote, which they feel is creating a problem, couldn't they also abstain?
But to answer your question, yes. I mean, it depends on the conflict of interest that's involved. For the most part, there are some conflicts that you can avoid by acknowledging the conflict and then, this is not the right word, sequestering yourself, but basically not participating in the discussion or the formation, typically with contracts. Recusal, there you go. Thanks, Neil. Oh, thanks so much. I was going to bug me forever if I didn't remember that. So you can recuse yourself, as board members are probably acutely aware with. You are able to do that. So, and the reason why I'm providing these cautions again, you know, it's my job to provide the risks, and the idea is that you appoint someone and it works perfectly. Everyone collaborates and no liability comes up. It's really my job to tell you, unfortunately, that's not always how it happens. These situations can turn sour. Liability can happen. It often does. And it's my job to kind of just tell you that these are the possibilities that could come up. As Trustee Butler pointed out, yes, you do have the right to do this pursuant to the education code. There are some risks in that. As long as you're comfortable with those risks, it's your prerogative to move forward with those.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, well, I think so. We need to be, I think the goal here is to recommend that this go back to the board, the next board meeting. Do you agree with that, Trustee Laura?
I do. We have a consensus on that. I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
That'll be our next step on.
Right,
April
so-
20th.
Ms. Vernon could make those, add those references to the quotes that we talked about before the next board meeting. Great, thank you.
Okay. Good. It's nice to get something accomplished. Okay, let's move on to our new 4.5 is the Charter MOU extension discussion. Okay, Mr. McChesney.
Yes, I think in my original PowerPoint deck, that's section 4.7, Michelle, if you want to jump to that. Keep going, keep going. There we go. Okay, so I am, again, recycling some content from our discussion, but I do have some new information to add here. This was shared at our last charter committee meeting. It's just an overview of the main issue, the extension in charter terms, how they'll come up over the next several years, and where the gaps will be. Next slide. I talked about the fact that Golden Gate and Making Waves, which happen to be the next two charters up for renewal, actually do not have MOUs this time. Next slide. We can kind of scroll through these quickly. I gave you some examples of what the language is in the Invictus and Caliber slides. Keep going. Some points to consider about MOUs in general. And then I think this is my new slide. You asked that I look into the issue and in terms of how other authorizers are dealing with it. It just so happened on March 10th of this month, I was participating in my regular CCARC meeting, which is the County Charter Authorizers Representative Collaborative. So all the county offices from across the state get together on a regular call to talk about charter authorizing practices. I was able to get an agenda item on there and asked the question about this issue and how other authorizers are managing the issue. And really the singular approach from the other counties was to simply extend the current operating MOUs to match the new charter terms, right? So effectively just aligning those two terms, giving the MOUs 2 more years. It was shared with me a standard one-page agreement that was drafted by legal for one of the county offices that they used with their charters. We could replicate that if we wanted to. I also was shared by another county office some language that I would recommend we place into MOUs moving forward in case something like this ever happened again. It would contemplate that occurrence and adjust accordingly. So it effectively says, if an extension was offered by the state or in statute, that the MOU would continue to match the term of the charter. So we wouldn't have this kind of gap occurrence in the future if circumstances led to a similar situation. So there were no other alternative approaches offered to this situation, and there were between 30 and 40 county offices on the call with me. So that is what I had to report back. That was what was requested in our last meeting.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Trustee Butler. Comment.
Well, so I understand all of this and it's interesting, and thank you for the information, and you did what we asked. But I just wanted to say, in thinking about these MOUs and that very first slide that Golden Gate Making Wave Academy do not have MOUs, it occurred to me and since we were talking about Invictus board meetings, et cetera, board meetings of other charters and charter. So the thinking about Golden Gate, I'm not aware that they have anything similar to a board meeting. And I'm wondering, where is it that parents or do they, and I'm just not aware of it, the parents of students at Golden Gate, where can they go when you would normally go to a board meeting if you wanted to speak at public comment or something? Is there some other type of meeting? I would like to I don't know if you know the answer offhand, Mr. McChesney, but I would like to understand the governance of Golden Gate better. And I think I'm just asking basically for another agenda item about this, but do you have a quick answer to that in the meantime?
My quick answer is that I believe that Golden Gate operates the site council, which acts in that capacity. But yes, their governance structure is very, very different than any of the other charters in our portfolio, and pretty unique in and of itself. So they don't have you are effectively the board for Golden Gate. But I think their site council is kind of the intermediary that would serve in that kind of a capacity. I'd be happy to talk to the superintendent or other team members and give you more information on that if you like.
Yeah, because I think that's what's informally called a dependent charter. And
That's correct.
But still, it seems like there needs to be a place for parents to go to speak, like at public comment. And I hear you, site council. I don't know if they have a public comment time at their site council meetings. I don't know that site council meetings are very often. I think they're just at one time in the year when they're developing the site plan, and not necessarily all year. I think Ms. Kiernan was actually going to send us the list of the email dates, on email, the list of the meeting dates. I'm not sure she did that already or not.
Yeah, no, I'm just waiting for the links. So it's in process.
Oh,
Okay.
well, so I think you have the meeting dates, though. Maybe you could send us the meeting dates, even without the links. But that's a separate question.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, I don't want to get off topic, but
Well, Trustee Butler, it just sounds like we need clarification on this. It is confusing to me as well. And, if we are the governing board then what does that mean? And if we're not, why not? And how does that work exactly? To me, I don't get it. So we do need some clarification on that.
I'm happy to bring back some information or communicate with the superintendent to make sure that that's clear.
yeah, I think we need a future agenda item, Golden Gate governance and explanation of how that works as a separate agenda item.
Golden Gate governance. Yeah.
Sure.
Great, thank you.
Okay. All right. Very good. We're finished with 4.5. Oh, Trustee Butler, what I'm also finding reference to MOU template. Has that been done? I mean, is that something that we were going, I don't remember what the discussion was about that. If we were going to look at one or.
No, I think that was supposed, there's no reason. We have an MOU template. It's in our forms on our website. I think that the reason it was previously an agenda item, we were talking about what's the template for renewing our MOUs, which is what Mr. McChesney was talking about.
Got it.
So, we haven't really decided that. But I kind of feel like it's not as urgent because we don't have any MOUs that are about to expire. The first two charter schools that would have expired don't have MOUs. So then the first one is Invictus. And then that would be the only one the year after, right? So that's the next one on our agenda, and we have a whole year to do that. So sort of, or
Right.
I don't know, Mr. McChesney, when is the timing when we should deal with this for Invictus?
Well, so you are correct in that, given that the two charters whose MOUs would have theoretically been expiring at the end of this year did not have MOUs. So that's a non-issue in terms of timing. Invictus would be the first, and you would be looking at the end of next school year, so June of 23. So you do have more than a year before there's an actual gap that exists. That being said, it just depends on how the board decides they want to proceed with this matter. There's nothing from stopping us from addressing it right now for all of the schools in our portfolio because we know the problem will eventually be there. And based on some of my colleagues' actions in the call that I was on, many authorizers have already addressed the issue, again, with just a simple addendum to their current MOU saying, look, this MOU is now extended for 2 years and matches the new term of the charter. That's a relatively simple approach and simple fix that we could accomplish in short order. And I don't anticipate any meaningful pushback on that. If the board was to decide to take an alternative approach to this, then I think we really need to calculate how to move forward and what the timing would be on that, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Okay,
Um,
all right.
So, well, this is a discussion item. It's not an action item, so we can't
Yeah.
do any action right now. But
I
I want to bring up something else though related to this regarding these first two, Making Waves and Golden Gate. Even though they don't have an MOU, the MOU has important things in it, like must comply with all state and federal law. And, I think what we ought to do is look at our MOU template and make sure and see if there's any important things in that MOU that aren't already in those charter petitions. Because if there was, couldn't we be asking them to, do something? Couldn't we ask them to do something about that?
I mean, I guess as a general answer, there is never anything stopping us from asking. It
Right.
may be complicated to get the response we want depending upon the ask, and that's the
Right.
nature of an MOU. I will say, Trustee Butler, I know you know this, and I know legal counsel has signed off, but if they could talk to this too. The vast majority of the contents in the MOU is regurgitation of education code, which is already applicable whether the MOU exists or not, and also often covered in the charter petition itself to great extent. So
Mhm.
just because Making Waves or Golden Gate does not have an MOU in place does not mean that they do not have to comply with all of the statute that exists and the normal expectations for charter school law. Again, really the vast majority of the MOU is just a resuscitation of that.
Mhm.
There are some
Right.
nuances that this office and this board have added into our MOUs that clarify some processes that place things like Schedule A into practice, but just candidly, all of the charter schools are following the compliance submission structure that's outlined in Schedule A, even though some of them don't have Schedule A in their MOU because their MOU was approved before that document existed. So I don't feel there's a huge gap or liability that exists because of the absence of an MOU with these two schools. I think it would be good if those schools were renewed, obviously, to enact an MOU with them moving forward. My recommendation on this whole thing probably would be to adopt a similar approach as some of the other county offices of a singular addendum to the existing MOUs to extend them to align with the extended charter terms. I don't know that Making Waves or Golden Gate's kind of unique, but I'll just speak to Making Waves. I don't know if they would be willing in the last year of their charter term to enter into an MOU that hasn't existed for the first 6 years of that charter term. So it would be a little strange. Those are my thoughts.
No, I was just thinking more, we could check and see if there are things that aren't in their charter that we have in our template. And as you said, it would be asking them because you can't require them. But anyway, but we're all busy, so that's not something we can do right now. So I think we finished this discussion. We can just put this on a future agenda.
Future agenda,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I wrote as well, because I think it's important for us to discuss more. Okay, we are going now on to 4.6, which is Schedule A, required documentation. And Mr. McChesney.
Yes, I think that remains 4.6 in my deck, Michelle, to just back a little bit. Okay, there we go. So just to calibrate briefly, Schedule A is a standardized addendum that we've created to our charter MOUs. It provides a pretty exhaustive list, there it is, of compliance tasks and documentation that are required for our charters, and a timetable and a methodology for submitting and completing those things. Currently, we're actually transitioning the collection and review of this content to our online document management system. So Epicenter will not only digitize the archive, but to, I think, the point that you're getting at with this agenda item, it can provide status reports at any given time of the year that shows you exactly where charter schools are and your entire portfolio are. If you go to the next slide, I'll give you kind of one example of what this could look like. So you can see, it generates charts like this that will show you how much of the documentation is submitted on time. Is it accurate? What the status is? You can get breakdowns for each individual school, and or you can see the entire charter portfolio. You can also drill into this and see what kinds of submissions by category or whatever. So if it's the charter committee's will, I'm happy to include regular annual updates, quarterly or whatnot, in my board reports, using this new tool to kind of illustrate where charters are in those compliance submissions. But we're using this tool primarily to drive the collection and review of the Schedule A documentation. That was what I wanted to share for this.
So this is a separate software program or something? Or is that what you're?
It's just a document management system, a cloud-based document management system online, where we build out the compliance calendar on the user ends. We give the details, just verbatim, taking them from Schedule A. You'll submit your first interim in these formats. You'll submit your, org chart with this detail, and then we build it out in a calendar. So it has deadlines, reminders that come to the charter school before, and then when they submit something, it goes through review through myself or colleagues in this office, and there's an approval process or a rejection if there's something missing or not in compliance. So it tracks all of that data in a really efficient and user-friendly way. So that's what I'm saying is I could use that tool to help keep the board apprised of their progress along the course of the year, if that's what you're getting at with this agenda item.
Well, I have a question. This chart you're showing, would we get a chart for each school?
You can, yep. You can get a chart for each school. You can break it down in any number of ways. So I mean, in my mind, theoretically, I could, as part of my board update at meetings, provide that breakdown for each of the schools in my presentation, so that the board was aware of where we were with compliance.
Okay.
So I have a question here. Looking at this slide, it says submitted, on time, accurate, status. Submitted just tells you it was submitted. On time tells you whether it was on time. Accurate, I mean, I wouldn't want to just know, did they submit it? Was it on time? I want to, know, did they submit what they were supposed to and all of that? That's where accurate comes in. But I don't know, this seems, from looking at this one slide, this looks very simplistic. And our Schedule A, I don't know, it's a long document, has a long list of things. It's 13 pages. So are all of these things would be in this Epicenter? I remember it's on our agenda before that you wanted to pursue this Epicenter. And I think it was, I don't know if you were asking for the approval for the funds or what. How much did this cost?
No, it was not asking for approval of the funds. It was just an FYI for the board. This is an administrative action. It's a per school contract. I think for this academic year, it was $4,000 to $5,000 for the entire year for all of our charter portfolio. And we've just gone through the trainings and have uploaded all of the items from Schedule A. So they're all now in there. The charter schools are transitioning to that. So this image on this slide is just an example. This isn't even from our portfolio. This is just a visual that I was trying to illustrate what it could look like.
This does
but yeah.
not replace Schedule A.
No. It's just the methodology for collecting the documentation.
Okay,
Well, so wait, I'm sorry, I'm not that techie a person, but when you say it's a methodology for collecting the documentation, then what happens? Somebody's reviewing each document. I mean,
That's
does
correct.
it just save you time in that it immediately says whether it was submitted or not? Does the charter school send it directly to Epicenter? Or do they send it to the county office and then somebody has to do something to the software to say we received it? I don't understand how this works.
Sure. So no, they upload the submission to the platform. They actually get tasks sent to them by the software. So the platform will say, hey, this is coming due. Here's the directions. They submit. I get a notification that it's been submitted. So I can go in and review it and either approve that it's a complete and satisfactory submission or send it back to them if there's a deficiency or any other issue. And then it tracks that progress throughout the year. As you'll note in Schedule A, right, things have a deadline or a timetable for when to submit them. So that entire calendar gets built out in there and then automates the reminders and tracks whether, like you can see here, it was on time or not, and whether it was approved or not, et cetera, et cetera. So it disaggregates the data there in a very effective way.
Okay, so, well, I would like to see, I don't know exactly what to have, but something from Epicenter that, do you have it? Does it list all of the documents that is in our Schedule A, but it's in Epicenter? Do you have that?
Yeah.
So can you send that to us so we can see it? Because all I see is these 4 circles here.
Yeah, again, this image is not reflective of our portfolio. This is just an example, so you got a visual. I'd be happy to, once we're kind of fully on board with the program, which is we're getting there right now, share other examples, share the list of all the submissions, give you some more information on that. But again, the point here was, if you're looking for status updates, which I think is the objective of our charter schools and their compliance with Schedule A, this would be a primary tool for me to use to provide that information to you.
okay.
Well, okay, so since I asked for this agenda item, I believe, I wanted to point out, I asked Ms. Kiernan to attach a few links there to what Solano County had done with their corresponding charts or whatever. And they have this, chart which shows, when they receive certain documents by what date. Some of it seems very long, but the last one, there's a snapshot, and it shows with comments and X's in the boxes. It meets expectations. It needs attention. It says FICMAT audit results. Something like that could come to us that shows, yes, we received these documents, but we're looking into that, whatever it is. And, apparently they only have 1 charter school. I know we have 8 that we oversee. So I don't know if Epicenter is going to do this, but this is the kind of thing I was looking for. They apparently get these kind of updates at every board meeting. So I don't know if there's something, I'm not trying to create more work, but if there's some way that you can give us a similar type of update, or what, you can tell us what you think makes sense. But right now we only get, in the past we've gotten your PowerPoints and they're fine, but I'm feeling like I'm not really getting that much information. So that's what I was kind of looking for.
Yeah, this is helpful for me.
Okay. Very
Okay.
good. Yeah,
Great.
looks good. All right, I
Okay.
think we are done with Schedule A required documentation, 4.6. So we're on to 4.7, which is used to be 4.5, charter visits.
Ah.
Yes.
I had one slide on that, which I can just kind of summarize, which is to say that you understand the practice. I've actually working with 3 charter schools right now to finalize dates for the next set of visits for the board, which now that we're kind of out of the Omicron surge, I think everybody's ready to accommodate. That would be the 3 that were on the list requested by this committee: Summit, Making Waves, and Contra Costa School of Performing Arts. One coming in mid-April, and then we're looking at later in April. Everybody's spring breaks are coming up here, but yeah, finalizing dates, and we'll share those prior to the next board meeting so that Michelle can coordinate signing up, etc. So that is a work in progress.
Okay, great.
Great. Actually, I've never visited Manzanita, and I think I wanted to visit that charter school as well.
Sure, I will put them on the list.
Yeah, so let me just look here. Summit, Making Waves. Yeah, we visited Caliber recently, Invictus. Yeah. I mean, there are multiple Golden Gate sites. I think I visited 2 of them maybe, but at least I visited them. I've never visited Manzanita, and I've never visited Spa. I mean, I have, I meant to say Summit. I have, let's see, I don't know if I've visited Spa. I don't think I have. Great.
Okay,
So, yeah, so you're gonna schedule those. When did you say again?
The first is coming up in mid-April. And as soon as I have them finalized, I will share through Michelle like we did before, so she can coordinate.
okay,
Okay, so
great.
remember, we have our April board meeting on the 20th, so we want to avoid being right around the 20th. I mean, I don't want it on the 20th or the day before, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
if
No problem.
possible. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we are now on 4.8, future agenda items. So I have a little list. One is Golden Gate governance.
Got it.
We just wanted some clarification about that. I still want to talk about the MOUs, the MOU template.
I thought it was MOU extension. Is
I
that,
mean-
is that the same thing?
Um,
About?
it could be, yeah.
So when you said the MOU template, Trustee Laura, what did you mean by that?
Well, I would like to know how that's included and what things are there. I see this as a document that's a contract between the charter and the county. And it could be where we see the collaboration between the two. So in terms of the oversight. So I just would like to have more discussion and more information about it. So can we do that?
Got it.
But so let's make sure we understand what we mean by that, because we've had this MOU template on the agenda several times. I thought we were talking about the MOU extension, but I think, so the template that we have that's on our website, I think
Yeah.
it was approved before Trustee Laura had been elected. So she's probably never walked through all the different points.
Exactly.
And so I think that's what you're talking about. Let's walk through the points and talk about what it really means or something, right? Yeah.
Is it huge? I mean, I thought I heard it's one page, a one pager.
Oh, no, it's 21 pages.
Oh, okay. Let me take a look at it then.
It's 21 pages. It has 34 different topics over those 21 pages.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's sort of like reviewing the charter petition, but it's or a template, but it's a,
Okay.
but I mean, we can talk about it. Let's set, 15 minutes aside or something, but I mean, to be reasonable.
Discussion. Okay.
I don't know if we need to talk about it further another time. I'm not trying to diminish it. I'm just saying you can talk an hour about it if you wanted to, but
Yeah.
I don't know that we
No,
need to do that in
you're
our
right. I
meeting.
just need to catch myself up on it. So that's where I am. So, yeah. Also, I'm curious about if there's any new charter legislation either coming down or if there has been anything new that we should know about. I'm just curious. Do you know, Mr. McChesney, if there's any new legislation?
There's no charter legislation that I'm aware of that's currently relevant, but I'm happy to just do an assessment there and bring back a full report at the next committee meeting.
Okay, all right, that would be good. Thank you. And Trustee Butler, you have any items for future agenda?
Well, we might need some sort of follow-up to charter board appointment. Assuming, I mean, the board, if the board approves our draft appointment process, that's great. We may need to discuss further for next steps. So just you have that as a placeholder, next steps on charter board appointment.
Yes, okay.
And then we also need a follow-up on the Schedule A / what was it called? Epicenter, the software. Let's have more follow-up information on that.
Okay.
Great.
All right. I think that, and do we want to talk about when we want our next meeting to be?
Oh, yeah, let's set another meeting date.
I don't think we need it to be in 2 weeks necessarily. Do you?
Well, let's see, our next board meeting isn't until the 20th. Today's the 24th.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on how much we want to get done. I would like to hear about Golden Gate and the governance issue. And I think we could keep talking about the MOU issue. I think those two topics warrant us continuing to move along, but it depends on when we can schedule a meeting.
Do you want me to send out a poll, or do those get annoying?
No.
Well, let's try to get a general idea here. Would we, I mean, we could consider the first week of April, or do we want to, I mean, that would be 2 weeks before the next board meeting, or the week after that. Well, we have the board retreat, the 11th, but you know, first or second week of April, or else we make it the end of April.
Yeah.
But once we get to the end of April, we're almost, it feels to me like we're starting to get to the end of the school year, because May is, you know, right before June and whatever. So,
well, and also think about this. Mr. McChesney has to have some dates available to schedule the charter visits. What do you guys think about the mid-morning of April 25th?
for a charter visit,
No, for, no, I don't know when those are going to be for a meeting. Or is that icky? No, I don't know.
The 25th, that's a Monday?
Yeah.
well, that's kind of far away. That's a whole month from now.
Okay.
Well, that could be one possibility, but what about meeting sooner? What about the,
So if we're going to meet sooner, then there's a couple of the items that we're not going to have, right? We're not going to have for future agenda items. We're not going to have, where's my paper? We're not going to have the follow-up on the charter board appointments, right?
yeah, sure, right.
On there.
We
Okay.
don't have to have everything on the agenda. We could just have 3 items on the agenda. I mean, this meeting has been an hour and a half almost. And
Trustee
we could
Butler,
just aim for an hour.
so let's see, in 2 weeks would be the first week of April. What about sometime between the retreat and the next board meeting? Would
Yeah, like the 14th maybe, or the 13th, or,
The 18th? Do you want to do the 18th or the
That's
19th?
good with me. It's a Monday.
A Monday?
That would work for me.
Is 9 early? Does that work for you, trustee Butler, the 18th?
Let me think. So that's the day after Easter. But, well, it's a Monday. The 10 would be better.
Or the 15th?
You
The
don't want to,
15th?
yeah, what about the 15th or 14th?
Does 10:30 work on the
15th.
15th? I definitely can't do the 14th. If you guys want to do it without me, that's
Okay.
fine. But I have all these
Yeah,
meetings to
the
prepare
15th is fine.
at
for me.
10:30.
I
What
would
time
only
would
have
be-
30 minutes then, Michelle,
Oh.
just FYI.
Oh, sorry. It looks
Oh, so no, what about earlier? Can we meet earlier?
no, Consuelo has a meeting from 9 to 10:30.
Yeah.
On the 15th, okay.
I
Yeah.
know.
What about the 13th?
I'm okay with the third.
Or, well, maybe we don't want to do it the 13th.
On the 13th, the afternoon, only if it's like in the morning time. Will we also have our
Let's
agenda?
go back to the 18th. I think you're right. Well, that's 2 days before the board meeting, but the 13th is 2 days after the board retreat, and we got to be focused on the board retreat. I mean, it's only about agenda setting. You've got to do that, 2, 3 days or 4 days before the meeting. So then you're doing that when you're supposed to be getting ready for the board retreat, and it's sort of like a lot happening at once. But the 13th might be possible, and otherwise the 18th. Why don't we hold as a placeholder those 2 dates, 13th, 18th, or 25th? 3 days.
Okay.
I don't know. What do you
So how
guys
about
all
I'll
think?
send them out and then you guys let me know what ends up fleshing out.
Okay. with
Yeah,
the-
We can all
times.
confirm to Michelle which of those 3 dates work for us best.
And the times that we have. Okay.
Right.
All right. I think we are ready for 5.1. Oh my goodness, it's 6 o'clock.
It's dinner time.
Very good.
6 o'clock.
Great meeting. Thank you.
All right, the chair will adjourn the meeting at 6 o'clock.